Welcome back to Christian Questions on News Talk 104.7 WXLM. Our subject this morning, whose sins did Jesus die for? To be a part of our program, call 860-442-9956. That's 442-WXLM.
And Jonathan, we've been doing a lot of recapping of history here and following the path of the promised seed, so to speak. That where did it come from? Where did it go to? And we followed it all the way up through the nation of Israel, through the prophets and all of that. And now we come to a point where Israel is cast off. They're cast off from favor. Jesus says, your house is left to you desolate. That's a pretty straightforward proclamation. And we know that just, 37 years later, Jerusalem was destroyed.
That's right.
And Israel was scattered to the four corners of the earth. So you see that that prophecy was fulfilled in a dramatic sense. And so the idea is, okay, well, what does that mean for the question, whose sins did Jesus die for? Are they included? Are they not? Let's continue. The second question now is what?
Is Jesus was Jewish. Does that make his sacrifice for them or against them?
Okay, we want to really focus on that. And now, understand, folks, that, and this is, we were just talking about this during the break, this is something that's not the normal Christian conversation, but Christianity, the Christian movement, began with Jews and Jews only.
Right.
That's it. That's all that were a part of Christianity at the beginning.
All the apostles
were Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay? All of them, without exception. And these questions that we're talking about were of paramount importance in the New Testament. And we can begin to answer these questions through an examination of the book of Hebrews, because it was written to the Jewish converts to help them understand what to bring with them from the law and from Judaism, and what to leave behind from the law and from Judaism. So remember, Jonathan, in the first hour we talked about there was a paradigm shift at one point, dealing from individuals
to a nation.
Then there's another paradigm shift because you have the nation cast off.
Right.
And now you're dealing with a movement,
right,
not a nation.
That's right.
So God's way of dealing shifted dramatically as time went on. The Apostle Paul understands this, and we believe it's not, conclusive by the book, but we believe that he was the writer of the book of Hebrews. And he put Hebrews out there to put in context how the law should be respected and honored, but oftentimes left behind in light of Christianity. So we're gonna skim through some of the chapters of Hebrews because it's going to help us figure out whose sins did Jesus die for. And folks, if you have a thought, it's 860-442-9956, 442-WXLM.
Well, let's take a look at Hebrews 1, verses 1 through 6. God, having of old time spoken unto the fathers in the prophets by divers portions and diverse manners, hath at the end of these days spoken unto us in his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the worlds, who being the brightness of his glory, and the very image of his substance, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had made purification of sins, and sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become so much better than the angels, as he hath inherited a more excellent name than they. For unto which of the angels said he at any time, Thou art my Son, this day have I begotten thee? And again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. And when he again bringeth in the firstborn into the world, he saith, And let all the angels of God worship him.
Now, when you hear that, you think, there's a lot of details in those 6 verses. The amazing thing to me is the apostle here, in dealing with an audience that is of Jewish descent, is finding a way to truly communicate with them. And in these first 6 verses, he introduces Jesus in the context, though, of the Old Testament. In those first 6 verses, he quotes from Psalm 2, verses 7 and 8. He alludes to Proverbs 8, 22-30. He quotes from 2 Samuel 7, 14, 1 Chronicles 22, 10 and 28, 6, Psalm 89, 26 and 27, and Psalm 97, 7. He quotes parts of all of those verses.
That's the first six verses of Hebrews.
And what he's doing is he's sending a very clear message saying, there is something I need to tell you that is entirely based on what you've always believed in and held sacred. And I think that's an important place to start. And he starts with the greatness of angels. And he's talking about angels because angels were the most powerful beings other than God himself that was known to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so he is starting with a comparison to angels. Now let's read to Hebrews 1:13 and 14.
But to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? Are not all angels spirits in the divine service, sent to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? So
he's talking about angels, but he's saying to which of the angels was given promises like they were given to Jesus? And the answer is
none.
None whatsoever. So the apostle is making a case for Jesus to be in a class all of his own, above the angels. Above the angels. Now, remember in our theme scripture, it talked about Jesus having been made a little lower than the angels for a specific time and for a specific purpose. But now he is above, and the apostle is laying out the magnificence of the sacrifice of Jesus, and this will directly lead us to the answer to the question as to whose sins did Jesus die for. All right, let's touch on, and we're just going to touch on some of these chapters here as we wrap up our program for this morning here. Hebrews, the 2nd chapter.
And let's read verses 2 and 3. For if the word spoken through angels proved steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense of reward, how shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which having at the first been spoken through the Lord, was confirmed unto us by them that heard?
Okay, so there's two things here. Again, he's talking about the word spoken through angels proved steadfast. So the prophecies given by angels and the prophecies given through messengers, it proved steadfast.